Today I'm talking about 3 Brigitte Bardot movies I got from the library. Ooh. And the names of those 3 films are Shalako, Spirits of the Dead, and Dear Brigitte. First up is Shalako. This is a 1968 Western film starring Sean Connery, his one and only Western film, and it's pretty good. The basic premise is this group of Europeans come to the Old West to do some big game hunting, but the cowpoke that they hired to guide them on this hunt is a racist, and he took them onto protected native land, and now they're poaching, and the natives aren't happy about it, but the Europeans don't care because they're racist, except for Brigitte because she's great, so they basically get hunted down because they were being racist. And yeah, I enjoyed this a decent amount. Sean Connery was a good lead, even though he keeps his normal accent, which does sound a little silly coming out of a cowboy. They more or less explain it, and I could accept it. I definitely like the story of respecting natives. Like, that's kind of a central theme to it. I feel like they had a missed opportunity, though, with this film, because part of it is that this group of Europeans do get hunted down, and it's for a complicated reason, but part of it is basically that the son of the chief has a vendetta against Shalako, Sean Connery, and so that's why in particular he really wants to go after these guys, because he's with them and he wants to kill him, and he's disobeying his father's orders, and that's not made the most clear. But then on top of that, it's such a missed opportunity to add another layer of tension, because that's what this movie really relies on, is just kind of like the tension of the dire situation that these people are in, the bed that they have made for themselves, and how it's all going to hell. Because there is a good amount of tension in the film, it just needed a bit more. The way to bring in more tension is to see the perspective of the Native American who's hunting them down for revenge. But yeah, I would still recommend this movie though. It's pretty good. It's a decent film. Bridget's pretty good. Sean Connery's pretty good. It's an interesting story. It's just a little long. It could have been a little better, but still worth the watch. Next up is Spirits of the Dead. This is a 1969 anthology film. It is 3 adaptations of 3 different Edgar Allan Poe films, all directed by different people and starring different people. So because of that, I need to talk about them each story individually. All 3 are around 40 minutes each. So the first one stars Jane Fonda, and this is Jane Fonda literally right after Barbarella. So this is just like peak Jane Fonda hotness. And they put her in some outfits in this film that are just incredible. It did a lot for me, and the world needs to be aware of what she wore in this film. But what's so fascinating is that they have Jane Fonda at her peak in incredible outfits, and yet they somehow made the most boring film. Ugh. So much nothing happened in this film. Really, if this thing had been like 10, maybe 20 minutes at the most, it would have been interesting, but no, they dragged it out way too long. The premise is that Jane plays this rich, snobby girl who gets a crush on her cousin and gets a bit obsessed with him, and then maybe he turns into a horse. What is fun though is that the cousin she has a crush on is played by her real life brother, Peter Fonda. But yeah, no, it's just way too long and way too nothing happens, though she is really hot in it, so that's nice. Okay, the second one stars Alain Delon, and he plays this man, and as a child he discovered another person with his exact same name, and that doppelganger has a tendency to pop up in his life at all of the worst times, and whenever he does, he always makes the situation even worse for him. So it's just kind of a recounting of their lives together, and it's really, really good and interesting. The main character is a terrible person, so it's really satisfying to see him get his comeuppance, but he also does really interesting, terrible things. Like the thing he does to another boy is just insane. I'm not gonna spoil it because it's just bonkers, but it's real interesting. I will say though, there is one bad scene in this film, and that's the one scene with Brigitte Bardot. That scene is just terrible. It's a gambling scene where just like one person makes a bunch of money and then the other person makes a bunch of money. It goes on forever and it's dumb. I think the only reason it goes on forever is because they got a star in the role of the other person. Otherwise though, it's freaking great and I love it a lot. So even with that like smudge, I would still recommend this story. The third one stars Terrence Stamp, and he plays a drunk actor who gets sent to Italy to do like a program thing. I'm not really sure, and he gets paid a Ferrari in exchange for it. I really didn't care for this one. I just kind of lost interest in it really quickly. It just didn't seem that interesting. I mean, Terrence did do a decent job as being just like a drunk celebrity, but I don't know. I just didn't care. And again, it went on for way too long. I think had it just been really short, maybe, but so, would I recommend this anthology film? If you're a fan of Edgar Allan Poe, yes, definitely, because you're probably going to get a lot more out of these stories than I did. To the general audience, no, I would say don't watch this whole thing. Though if you can just watch just the second one, 100% just watch that one, because even though it has a not great scene with Brigitte, the whole rest of it more so makes up for it, because that's just great. The other two films, no. So yeah. And lastly is Dear Brigitte. This is a 1965 James Stewart film, and it's not good. The basic premise is so strange. Okay, so James plays this professor of poetry, and he's all about the arts, and he hates the sciences with an incredible passion. But then it turns out that his son is Rain Man. He's really good at math. And James refuses facilitating his son's growth in math, even though he enjoys it, because it's a science and the sciences. But then he eventually discovers that his son is really good at gambling, and he has zero moral issues with using his 8-year-old son to gamble on horse racing. I feel like it's not a controversial opinion to say that an 8-year-old shouldn't be allowed to gamble. That should be something everyone can get behind, right? Why is that a big, important part of this movie? It's definitely not looked down upon, and actually he brings up arguments why it's actually a good thing for an 8-year-old to gamble. So, yeah, no, I didn't care for this film. Oh, the title comes from the 8-year-old boy has a big crush on Brigitte Bardot, and so they used part of the winnings to go meet her. And that's like the one good part of the movie. Bridget's great in this. She's adorable, and it's just a fun, cute little scene. But yeah, no, the rest of it's terrible. This is such a, what is this movie? It's bad, is what it is. Alrighty, now for today's rankings. First up, we got Shalako, sitting at number 63 in the quite like section. And then after that is Spirits of the Dead, sitting at number 87 in the liked category. And then bringing up the rear, rightfully so, is Dear Brigitte, sitting at number 100 in the didn't like section. And this is out of a total of 108 old movies so far this year.